Welcome to Scandinavian MIND Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more, from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, one charger to rule them all. USBC is becoming mandatory according to new EU law. We report from Iceland Innovation Week, a new festival celebrating and showcasing Icelandic startups and innovations, where also Nordic Startup Awards were held a few weeks ago. Lastly, we'll hear from Björn Orvar, the co-founder and chief scientific officer of the Icelandic skincare brand BioEffect. I'm Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here at the Helio podcast studio at our headquarters with my dear colleagues Erik, Sedin, and finally on the podcast, Johan Magnusson. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I made it.
We have been trying to get Johan, our most avid news writer, on the podcast for since the beginning of time. Again, Roland's not here, so we had to find a stand-in, and you didn't have an excuse anymore. You were just standing outside. You just had to sit there.
It was about time.
Yeah, and good things comes to those who wait.
So happy to have you, and I think you are the most quoted editor of Scandinavian Mind on this show, because we frequently plug your articles, and maybe we should start right there and plug some of the stories that we have online right now, which I always enjoy. There is a story published today, I think, with the researcher at the Department of Design at Aalto University School in Helsinki. Again, with Helsinki, Natalia Särmäkäri. Johan, do you understand what she says?
It's a quite in-depth story, quite interesting, and the topic is she's done her research for like 5 years. It's very comprehensive, and it's mainly about how the designer's role changes with the boom for digital fashion.
And she talks
That's
about
the short version.
She talks about fashion 4.0, which I quite enjoy. What does she mean by fashion 4.0?
So it's like the next level of the fashion industry and the implementation of digital fashion in the fashion industry, and how those two worlds merge.
Well, obviously a topic that we've been covering extensively on this show. Should be noted as well. What else is going on right now? Global Fashion Agenda is happening in Copenhagen this week. We have our editor Oliver Dahle has been on the ground. Looking forward for reading his report on that. Next week coming up, Pitti Uomo in Florence. So the trade shows are starting to happen. But let's look at some other stuff we've been publishing also from you, Johan. Our Fashion Tech special from issue 3 is also rolling out this week and the next. This week, one of my favorites, CSAV, the recycling company. Quite unsexy at its core, but I think they're doing some great work in terms of recycling. Johan, maybe you could just briefly mention what they're about.
So it's quite an old company, and they've of course they've had challenges to adapt to like how to be relevant for their customers and so. And of course. A great solution to that is to take advantage of new technologies, and their technology, it's called like near infrared, and it enables recycling and the reuse of existing textiles.
Right.
And they're also able to create their own fabric out of it, which they have already delivered and will continuously to deliver to brands and industry players.
I didn't actually know that, or I maybe had forgotten it. But I mean, we've talked a few episodes ago about sort of how boring technologies are what's needed to change the fashion industry. And I think this is one of the greatest examples, because and I think we talked also at this transformation conference last week about recycling and the need for recycling. Only 1% of fashion is being recycled, so we need technologies like these. And of course, one of the challenges is the fact that fashion is made up of different types of fabrics and garments and fibers that you can't mix them. You can't recycle a polyester with a cotton. They need them separated, and this technology helps enable that. So great job there. Just quickly mention I think Streamateria, their 3D printed garments, always a pleasure, and we've mentioned Erik Lindvall in our platform many times. Perhaps just a quick mention there, Johan, about Streamateria.
So speaking of advanced technology, it would have been even better to welcome him to this show to explain how he works. But
we will. I have emailed him 4 times about doing a podcast. It never materializes. But Erik, I'm sorry, you will be on the show at one point or other.
But basically, the fundamental principles of his work, I would say, is the design to die principle. That he works with the 3D printing, and it's bio-based materials, and the fabrics and the garments are created to sort of die after, depending on how you use them, but after a few months or a night out at the club or so. And a few years ago he joined forces with Puma for a special capsule, which was covered all over the world from almost every media outlet there are. And now he's expanding the concept and making his startup sort of like a reality, and not only something for innovation exhibitions on museums or so, but more like a proper industry player.
So just out of curiosity, have you seen this? Like when it gets wet, is that where it starts to dissolve and break? Or because it just seems so crazy. Like he says in the text, after you've done it, you can just put it in a compost. With your orange peels and your banana peels and stuff.
So I haven't seen when they sort of disappear. I have seen the garments live because he had quite an impressive exhibition at a hotel in central Stockholm a few months ago, which was very, how do you say, spectacular. There were actually models wearing the garments, but they were not sweaty, and they were not in the club, so I didn't see the design to die principle in real life. Sort of.
I just really want to see that, because also speaking of issue 3 content now coming to our website, I had the Erik Lindvall and the Goringo part of Streamateria on the digital fashion list. Because they make everything, they always make everything digital first before they create these stuff, and it's 3D printed and stuff. Really cool. Maybe not so, a bit more sexy and a bit more fun than CSAV. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, CSAV, recycling company.
Sort of the opposite.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the garments stay on the people when they're wearing and not starting to dissolve too soon.
And also, when Erik arrives to this podcast, I will get back, because I want to be part of that episode as well.
Wonderful.
That is a promise.
Hopefully he'll be wearing his own 3D printed garments. Anyways, the Fashion Tech Special rolling out, continuing to roll out this week. The third and last part will come out next week, written by you, Johan. Enjoy. All right, moving into our next story here. USBC. We're gonna nerd out on charging cables. I find this super fascinating. We'll see where this goes. USBC is becoming mandatory for, I think, first cell phones and then other devices. Erik, you've been reading up on this.
I read the full on. So on Tuesday, this was on Tuesday, that the European Union and all parts of it, we have the Commission and the Parliament and the Council. I always get mixed up with that, but they have announced a new law that will remove cable clutter. That's how they say it. So basically this means mobile phones, tablets, e-readers, earbuds, digital cameras, headphones, headsets, handheld video game consoles, portable speakers, they will all have to have USB Type-C. And notice how they didn't say laptops. Because I was waiting for that one, because that would be, imagine you only having to use just one charger for everything. So, like I said here, I didn't read about wearables though, so they didn't put wearables in there. So maybe
Well,
that's
some of
because
what you
they're hard
mentioned
to-
are wearable, so
Exactly, in a way, yeah. But like a watch, I didn't read about watches,
No,
but that would
no.
be like if I just look to myself, that would mean I could use one charger, and I wouldn't need to go into the. I guess everyone at home has this box full of chargers where you, when you have to
Oh,
find
yeah.
something.
oh yeah.
And imagine just having one charger line around. It'd be perfect. But anyways, just to get to the root of it, I don't think I need to explain the USB Type-C, but if you're listening to this and you don't really know how it looks like, if you have a MacBook that came after 2015, I know my two colleagues here, they have them, I don't, but that's the one you charge with. It's like a mini USB.
Unless you bought the latest one where they
Exactly.
went back to the lightning
Yeah,
port.
that's almost like a little test for you. And that was very happy for me, because I know Apple, I think they know that they messed up with, like from 2015
Yeah.
until last year, the MacBooks have been terrible, especially the MacBook Pros.
Yeah.
With the touchpad and everything, like the travel on the keyboards, I can go on. So I'm happy that they're bringing back the MagSafe, because my girlfriend, she has a new one and she's been like tripping over them and her computer's falling on the ground and stuff. So they didn't mention laptops, like I said, in this press release from the European Union. So the MagSafe to me is amazing. So I'm glad that's staying at least for Apple. But yeah, so none of this basically matters to anyone except for Apple. They're like the real loser here.
They're still doing the lightning ports.
Yeah, I feel exactly the lightning port. And I feel like Apple is kind of like, they are American in a way. They are America. They're sticking to Fahrenheit while the rest of the world is like moving on.
Exactly.
Like, let's go with something that just works and everyone knows how to do it. You don't need an adapter. They're sticking to it, and now they won't have a choice. They will. I don't know if this means maybe Apple will go for their Asian market and for their North American market. They will also change that all their models have the USB
It's
Type-C.
hard to see that they won't change on all the phones for all the markets.
So
but
this is probably an American problem too,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
solution for the consumers as well.
I mean, they're already doing it on the. I have an iPad in front of me. They're doing USB-C on that iPad, and I can, use my. I can still use the USB-C on my new Apple computer, even though it has the Lightning port as well. So I'm constantly moving that back and forth. But is this actually a good thing then? What do you think?
Like for me, only like from a consumer or from like a personal standpoint, I think it's great. I think having that like cable box at home, like cable drawer.
Yeah.
If you can have plenty of cables in there, but if they all have the same port or like the same end to it, I can just imagine how much better everything will be. Like I can just think of like me charging my Xbox controller or me, charging my phone or my Apple Watch or whatever. I can like to me it just makes sense. I have to actually, and it feels like this is probably what I will tell my kids and my grandkids. Like when I packed my bag to go to work, I had to put in 3 different chargers, one for my phone and one for my headphones and one for the laptop. It was time for this, and it's been rumored for a couple of years now. So I think it's great.
I
it's
love
happening.
it that that's your version of telling your kids. Like my version of telling your kids, like I had a different device for the phone and for the MP3 player. And
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Okay, so here's why this maybe is not such a great news, because this is very topical. I listened a few weeks back. There was a special podcast on The Verge. Full 1 hour on USB-C. So anyone who wants to nerd out completely can listen to that, which I did. And, I don't remember most of it, but, obviously from the get-go, it sounds good. One cable for everything, right? Only problem is, just because it has the USB-C connector doesn't mean it is the same cable. So some of these USB-C cables are transferring data, and some are not. Some are only chargers. Some are only chargers for cell phones, but not for computers. And there's no way of telling on the actual freaking thing what's it made for. So, the counter argument would be to have different connectors for different cables. It actually does indicate that this is the computer cable, this is the cell phone cable. This transfers data from my camera to my computer and so forth.
Wow.
So I think there are actually generations of them. I think we're somewhere now on generation 4 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And there are different prices. So if you go into a store and buy USB-C cable, they will have different price levels, and that probably, and you have to read on the back, indicates that it has a certain percentage of volt,
kilowatts,
wattitudes. I don't know what there's a definitions to it, but so this was going to get confusing with this. So if you're traveling, for instance, you grab one of USB-C cables from your box and you realize it doesn't charge your laptop. You could potentially have a devastating situation.
It just sends information.
Exactly. And
oh, wow.
So they were actually talking in that episode about the need to develop some kind of iconography, something to print on the little thing to indicate what it is good for.
I lost all my excitement now. Like, this is not what I was about. I can't believe it. I should have done more research. But yeah, like that means like you haven't like taken, I don't know, that's like a common thing that I did when I grew up. You take like little tape pieces and you put like, oh, this is for the TV and this is the HDMI, if you remember.
Exactly.
So before that, we're all going to have like small tape pieces and writing what it's for, like computer.
Yeah.
Phone.
I mean, obviously, the good part is if you have a USB-C cable and you need to charge your phone, it probably can do that. But if it needs something more powerful, it doesn't necessarily do it.
Weren't our lives supposed to be easier with the introduction of like digital devices and technology?
No, it never gets easy. It's more complicated. Even when introducing something that's on the surface simplifying, it actually could be more complex.
But don't you think this will be regulated by 2025? This confusion.
Well, the problem is we're going to have stronger and stronger devices, and then someone's going to say, why don't we have USB-C for my electric scooter, which there's going to be a new like level 6 of the USB-C that will handle electric scooters, and then if you have level 5 that only charges cell phones and computers, you're not going to be charging the electric scooter. So I mean, these things always develop. So no matter where you land, I am for this, of course. I mean, I think it is convenient, and for like the majority of my devices, I always travel with small microphones and stuff like that for doing podcasts, and majority of I enjoyed having the same sort of connector. I would probably have more wires anyways because I need one for each device. When I'm traveling, I need to charge different devices, so it doesn't mean I have to have less wires. But of course, it's convenient.
And like I said, it's an EU law.
Yeah.
So it means that all these people, they have to. So even if you have a charging cable, they have one. That one will work for all of these that I mentioned, the e-readers and everything.
Yeah.
So at least that's better when you're traveling and you have your mic, and when we travel and we have the mics and stuff. So it's. I always say this. I like regulations. I like when that's how that's what makes the world change the most. When you tell us what to do, because we're so unsustainable and we're so bad at us. Our regular consumers. We just want to buy. So if someone tells me no, you can't do it anymore, that's where I change. I think that's where.
Well, I think I hear that, and that's all well and good, but I think the counter argument for this would be that EU sticks their nose into stuff that they shouldn't be in business with, and there's a lot of criticism around GDPR, for instance. Well intended. We need to take care of people's data and show respect. The only thing that happens is people just click on these cookies rules. Like we just click on it. We never read it. We don't care. We have no idea how our data is used, and it only kind of benefits these larger organizations like Facebook and Google because they have the manpower and resources to take care of this data. Whereas a smaller organization like, for instance, Scandinavian MIND, we have to invest a lot of resources into making sure our data is GDPR compliant. Whereas, like, what harm does it do if we have a few thousand readers in our mailing list, for instance? So I think the counter argument to that with EU is like well-intended law. They will make Apple do USB-C, but what happens in 2 years when there's a new technology that's going to be better than everything else, and they're enforcing an old technology, and we're back to square one.
Exactly. Well, I'm waiting for wireless charging anyways. I just want to walk into a room and get everything charged. So.
Do we know what Apple think about this?
No, I haven't read a comment yet. They're probably not so happy, but we know if you bought an iPhone recently, you don't get a charger with it anymore.
No.
You only get the phone, so they might not really care that much.
We don't know what they think. We can only guess. I've only seen the memes so far. So. All right, moving on to Iceland Innovation Week. This is where you come in, Johan. That's why you're on the show right now. You were in Iceland. We've talked, actually kind of chronicled on this podcast the travel itineraries of Johan Magnusson. Each day in a new place, or each week in a new place. It feels like this spring, or at least during May when everything opened up. But you went to Iceland. We were all jealous and envious about this trip because it looks amazing, and obviously we've committed to covering the Nordic scene. But maybe can we just set this up a little bit? What is Iceland Innovation Week?
So it's this initiative to collect and gather like the tech industries in the country, and of course it's promoted by state-owned organizations like Business Iceland and so forth.
Right.
And of course it's an event to attract interest for these startups and to sort of my main impression. I have a lot of impressions after 3 days in Reykjavik, but my main impression would be that this very country has created sort of its own ecosystem, because of course it's quite far away from everything else, and they need to they have a strong like local community, so they need to help each other in order to proceed and grow, and yeah, they're very helpful and gentle to each other. Of course there are competition in terms of like venture capital and so forth, but the main impression after those days would be that they stick to each other, and the feeling of community is strong.
And you also said that, kind of being honest here, that they had no idea what Scandinavian Mind was. It tells us we need to get there more. We need to get some magazines over there.
Definitely. I'm quite social and outspeaking, so I had quite a good time, because when they realized what we were doing, that there is actually this sort of Nordic platform which basically covers everything they do, they became quite interested and appreciated what we did.
Well, obviously we need to up our distribution in Reykjavik. But I mean, I remember you were excited. This was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. But you were excited when you got back from there. I mean, there's a sense that things are happening in Reykjavik. There are like forward-thinking people. There are interesting companies. We're going to hear from one of them later. But can you tell anything about the kind of the types of innovators that you saw? What types of industries were they in? Just anything, like a general reflection from there.
So my main impression was that the international journalists on this media trip, the first thing we did after landing at the airport was that we went to like Business Iceland, and it was this matchmaking session, and they had invited like 20 startups, and they expected like 7 or 8 of them to show up, which they seemed were quite a good fit for us, that we had time to speak to each other. The only thing was that all 20 of them showed up, so it was quite hectic. And
it's like speed dating.
Sort of, yeah. And my main impression would be that they are so far ahead of everyone else in their own way, and I think that they boost each other, because it's a very small city and it's a very densely populated country. So as I mentioned, they need to help each other in order to grow. And in terms of like specific areas, I would say that of course they have gained a lot of attraction for this carbon capture technology. So in the Nordics, like Scandinavia, like Sweden or Norway, we're currently discussing how to take care of the carbon and to capture it, like in the North Sea or so, that this venture can help bigger companies to take care of their carbon dioxide. So in Iceland, the facilities are already established. They're like, why aren't you in operation now? We've already started.
Super fascinating.
And also they have these ed tech startups which have won awards all across the world, and one of them is like huge in the Middle East, One of them has sales people in like every Scandinavian country. They're like they have found these certain areas which they are really strong in, and there are of course only a few like edtech startups on Iceland, given that it's quite a small country. But those are, of course, you can say that those are competitors. But my feeling was that they were talking to each other in that room, and they were discussing certain topics, and they were like sort of more friends than competitors.
Super fascinating. Maybe this is a good time to actually, we're going to hear a recording from one of the companies that you met there. Guy called Björn Orvar, the co-founder and chief scientific officer of the Icelandic skincare brand BioEffect. Of course, when Johan interviews someone, it has to be a skincare brand, right?
Of course, yeah. I'm the beauty correspondent at Scandinavian Mind.
And also, he also heads up something called ORF Genetics. Super fascinating. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say before we listen to this.
I chose to interview Björn because that was one of the most astonishing technologies that I've come across for the last few years, I would say.
All right, here now, Björn Orvar, the co-founder and head of business development at ORF Genetics.
Can you tell us just a few words about BioEffect? I'm quite into beauty, so for me BioEffect is one of the pioneers, but if you would describe it in your own words.
Yeah, it all started within ORF Genetics. We developed a new technology to produce so-called human growth factors. And some of those growth factors actually control the biology of the skin, how fast we age and so on. And we decided some 10, 15 years ago to develop a new skincare line using those human growth factors. And we formulated this skincare and launched it under the brand name BioEffect in 2010. And now, 12 years later, this brand has grown very much. It's now in 27 markets around the world. And the uniqueness with this product is basically we are using plant-produced human growth factors, more specifically the epidermal growth factor that controls the aging process in our skin.
Super interesting. And also, we just spoke about your new venture. What can you say about it? And it's also quite a booming market you've just entered. Tell us in your own words.
Yes, so we have developed this technology that allows us to produce any growth factors from humans, from animals, and so on. And we decided to start a new project producing animal growth factors using the same technology, because now there is a growing industry called cell-cultured meat industry, where companies are trying to produce meat from stem cells derived from animals. And so what you do basically is that you harvest these stem cells from the animal. You don't have to kill the animal, and you cultivate these stem cells and you turn them into meat. But to do so, you need those animal growth factors. So we have now started and launched a portfolio of animal growth factors specifically for this industry, and actually it's going quite well.
Super interesting. Thank you for being with us, and I wish you a good week, and we continue to explore Reykjavik and Icelandic innovations at Iceland Innovation Week.
All right, that was Björn Orvar, head of business and co-founder at ORF Genetics. Johan, I think perhaps the most important question, did you go into one of those hot springs?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And it was this scenic view.
Yeah, it looked nice, like almost downtown almost.
I can't even begin. I mean, I'm so envious of that.
Of course, they have, I don't have to mention their names, but they have quite a well-established and famous location. And we went to like the new and up-and-coming and cooler place.
Okay, of course.
Oh, nice.
Of course. So perhaps just mention, during your time there was also the Nordic Startup Awards, which was not really part of the Innovation Week, or it's organized by someone else, right?
Yeah, but they decided to be in Reykjavik thanks to Iceland Innovation
All right,
Week.
because so it's like a traveling thing, right?
The last few editions have been held in Copenhagen.
So any impressions from there?
I really like that we have these kind of awards. Of course, when it was held in Reykjavik, not that many of the nominees were there physically. But there were several hundred guests, and also a minister from Iceland was there as well, a minister for innovation. So that kind of shows how important innovation is for Iceland.
And minister for innovation.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe that exists somewhere. I never heard of it.
No,
it's pretty cool.
and she was like really, really cool. And we were at this pre-party before, and it was arranged by this duo, which you can hear and read more about, because they will guide to Reykjavik like next week on Scandinavian.com.
Nice.
And during this pre-party, this minister showed up, and she was more like a movie star than a minister.
I love it.
That's it. I feel like we're doing a Reykjavik issue here, so we need to go there. We need to have a launch party in Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Totally, but bring the best waterproof coat.
Wonderful. This has been Scandinavian Mind Weekly. We're coming up soon. Like next week is our last episode of our weekly before the kind of a summer break we're doing. We're going to be reunited with Roland. And also we'll hear from hopefully Elenia Martini, our editor-at-large, who's been covering the design weeks the past few weeks, both in southern Sweden design days, 3 days of design in Copenhagen, I think, and of course Salone in Milan that's going on as we speak. Is there anything else we should plug right now, guys, before we head off?
How was my debut?
Amazing! I can't believe what took you so long.
I knew you would nail this, and actually, it's kind of like you're not really doing your job unless you're on the podcast. We have to sort of renegotiate your terms here in a way, I think. You're sitting on so many observations. You're out there in the world. You're traveling. You're seeing all these cool people. I feel like what we've been doing with this podcast up until now is just, referring to your articles.
Exactly. That's all we do.
We're completely abundant. Maybe that's what will happen if Johan comes on the pod. We won't be necessary.
It'll just be the Johan Magnusson podcast.
And it will be a lot more about beauty and skincare in the podcast if I'm the guest of honor. Well, no, and for me, I know a lot more about USBC than I did before I entered this room.
All right, good stuff. Looking forward to next week's guide to Reykjavik. This has been the Scandinavian Mind Weekly with me, Konrad Olsson, Erik Sedin, and Johan Magnusson. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter not to miss out on any of our events and talks and so forth. Enjoy the weekend, guys.
Enjoy. See ya.
See you.